Hey, it's Robert Gowan coming at you at 15 Parish Street, and thank you guys again for listening to Mentors for Military. And if you like the show and you want to contribute, make sure you go out to our Patreon site at patreon.com/mentors, the number 4 MIL. We'd appreciate any kind of patron and donation that you can help us with. I'm here with my sidekick, Paul Martinez.
Hey, how you doing?
And we also have a co-host, Mr. Jason Belford again.
Hey, how you doing?
So today's guest wrote a book, and it's called The Enemy Inside Me. And Brandi Benson, I just want to say how much I appreciate you coming on the show, because we can't wait to talk about this. It's a very important topic.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
You were introduced to us by Chelsea at 107 Foundation. If you're not familiar with 107 Foundation, go check them out. And we're going to get into a reason why. I was hard to say the reason why, but I think it'll kill the whole topic of what we're getting ready to talk about. But it is an important factor. It is something that all veterans should be very much aware of. And we had a little sidebar conversation before you got here earlier this morning with Jason about this very topic. So him being on active duty, it's really important that he understands a lot about this as well. So, Brandi, I started to ask you about where it is that you came from, and I thought it was Illinois, but we were talking offline. It was actually Miami, right? No. California. Damn it.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
You were in San Francisco,
Yes,
and then you moved to Oregon.
Correct.
All right. So where did you join the military in Illinois? So where did that happen?
That happened in, I think it was 2008 is when I joined, and I was living with my sister. She was married at the time to her ex-husband, and he was in Great Lakes. So we were in a Navy housing there, but my sister ended up joining the military before I did, and I felt like I needed to do something with my life. I think I was 23. My sister was like 18.
You already had your degree at that time frame?
No.
Okay.
So I was in college.
Yeah.
And my whole goal was to go, become an officer, join the military then.
Yeah.
But my sister just decided to jump the gun sooner, and she wants to go. And I'm like, I have to do something. I can't just be doing nothing. She's going to have a jump start in her career. She's going to be working. She's going to have all these great things. So I was like, I'm going to join the military. And I originally wanted to go in the Air Force. I know, guys, sorry. So
I wanted to go in the Air Force.
Okay.
Or at least I looked at it and entertained it.
Yeah, I did. I was like, that might be the safest branch, because Iraq was going on and all that. So I was like, maybe that would be the safest one, and housing is better, quote unquote. So I was like, I'll just go there, and maybe something good would happen out of that. And there was a long waiting list for 6 months, and I was like, oh God, I can't, wait. So I was walking past, and an Army recruiter came out and was like, hey, I can get you in by Wednesday. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's sign me up. I signed up. My mom was pissed.
I mean,
Really?
she
was upset.
I was a recruiter at one point, and I can tell where most people who listen to this podcast know this. But anyway, most of our Air Force recruiters next door, they always had a 6-month or 12-month. Usually he had his quota for the next year, nearly at the point at which he was coming into the year. I mean, he was like, oh, dudes, I'm already got 6 months. I'm already out to June and stuff. And we're like, well, we just made this month. I mean, we got lucky that we actually closed it out.
Right.
We're not even thinking that far ahead. So that's exactly what we would do, is we'd wait for somebody to go down there, and you could see they'd have their head down walking away, and it'd be like, hey, come over here.
Yep. And that's what that's what they did. And they had me sign some paperwork. And
what was it that you talked about going into as far as the Air Force? And did you get the same kind of, thing in the Army, or were you even thinking about an occupation at that point? You just wanted to go into the military?
I was just trying to get out.
Okay.
There was no destination or goals or anything. I was like, whatever I can get, I just need to go.
Yeah.
It was I was feeling left behind.
Yeah.
My sister is already, she went to her basic training, went to her graduation. I was like, I got to do something.
Yeah.
This is not good.
Well, I had that she was in, but how much further ahead was she then? You just the fact of training, or?
I believe it was 7 months.
Okay.
7 months or something.
So not too much further ahead then.
Not too much, but I mean, we're kind of competitive, so.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell.
I was like, this is just not going to work. It's not going to be good, so.
So you end up going to Fort Jackson for basic training then?
Mm-hmm, basic training, yep. And my mom was very unhappy that I signed up. She did not want me to go. And she thought that, moms always know everything, of course. She thought that we would get deployed at the same time, And I was like, why would that happen? Like, why would the Army like deploy 2 siblings at the same time? And I was like, that's just impossible. Like, that doesn't make me...
You ever watch Saving Private Ryan?
I should have watched it, and I didn't. And it was just not a good thing. So she didn't want me to join. That
Pretty
was
popular
her.
movie, Brandi.
Very popular. And I thought, I've watched it a couple times. I didn't think about it then, but so the whole point of me joining was to have like some sort of stability and like a foundation where I knew that we wouldn't be abandoned again, because that's why I joined the military, is because my stepdad ended up leaving us with like all the bills, 3 dogs, and my sister and I, my mom, we were like so poor. We couldn't afford anything. Like, we had no money. So the military was like, if I could just get into the Army or get into some sort of branch, I would never have to be or worry about that ever again. And that was for like the entire family. So if something happened to my mother, you can come stay with me. Right. Something happened to my sister, so it's vice versa. So that was the whole point of us joining. And, we ended up just sticking on that.
Yeah. So what MOS was it that you went into?
Oh, gosh. I hate when people ask me this. Okay, so I joined... Okay.
Like a full preparation thing here.
Right? It's like, oh gosh. So I was like really moved and thought the money was great. So there was a bonus for a 92 Golf, right? A cook. Oh. So I know, but I didn't want to do it, but it was $30,000. And I was like,
what's wrong with that?
I mean, it was great. So I did it, but I feel like that's not what I shouldn't have like ran towards the money, but
you were a chef.
I was quote unquote a chef, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't do much cooking though, but
did you ever get into like pastries or anything like that doing the...
I had a very negative experience while I was with my leadership. It wasn't very pleasant. So anything that was probably like an easy task or something that would maybe bring you joy or something, I don't know. But they made sure I wasn't a part of that. So I didn't really do any pastry stuff. I was always working really hard. I had tough leadership on me. They were not very great.
Wow. I mean, listen, all the Army installations I went to, I know people complain about Army chow, but yeah. I didn't complain. I always thought that was some good food. I mean, every time I went there for the price you pay, holy cow, that was some good food.
I'm judging you harshly right now.
You may.
Well, I'm only judging you harshly because you obviously never eaten a 3rd Ranger Battalion chow hall.
He hasn't. We need to change that.
If you eat... We can. If you eat in the regular Army, you're 1 meat, 1 starch, I would lose my mind. Like, I got where we're at, like, we get fed like very well fed cattle. I mean, very well fed cattle. I love it. Like, we eat to perform.
Yeah, I feel like they're good portions. I don't know.
It's very good portions, as much as you want.
Yeah, it's, as many servings as you like.
But I got a question would be, what was the you said the leadership issue as a first sergeant with, and we have 1 female in our organization now that works with me, and what was the leadership issue that you felt kept them from giving you like the pastries or whatever that job? I don't know what to say in that.
Yeah. I just felt like my leadership, the individual who was my supervisor, if you want to say, I feel like she had like something personally against me. So she would go out of her way to give me a hard time and stuff, and she would like harass me. And so it came to a point where I had to go to GI and file complaints.
IG?
IG.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm thinking like GI.
We're all government issues. But
yeah. IG. I had to go
figured that's what you did. Yeah.
I had to go to IG and file some complaints, and then she backed off of me. But it was to the point where it was just so terrible.
Why do you think
I don't know. I don't know what it was, but she had something personally like against me. Whatever the reason was, she didn't like me, and it didn't really work out. And so that just gave me a really bad taste for the military. So I spent most of my time in the military in the hospital. So like the big portion of my career was in the hospital. And then when I finally got out, I went to Fort Stewart, and then I, was at got introduced to my leadership, and it wasn't very good. And I was like, I have to get out of this place. Like, these people are terrible. They don't care about my health or my well-being. Like, this is not somewhere I want to stay. So I ended up getting out. So I didn't spend a lot of time learning about the true Army and what was, really going on with that. Because I
What a crummy environment to foster somebody just like, I don't want to be here at all.
It was so bad. It was bad. And my sister warned me about the place. And I picked Georgia. I picked it. I wanted to go.
There are good things about Georgia.
Wait, there's great things, but I picked Fort Stewart. That's the place that I wanted to go. And my sister kept telling me, like, it's a rapid deploying area. Like, you do not want to go there. And I was like, no, I want to go. Like, I want to see what it's like. You know, it looks really amazing. And it was not that at all.
I've heard some feedback like that about Fort Stewart.
It was hard.
I don't know. It's culturally, I guess.
Sorry.
Depending on what unit you get to.
Toxic leadership.
That's a tough field to be in, though.
Yeah.
I mean, being a cook in the Army, nobody pays you any respect.
No.
For the most part.
Nice.
I mean, you're bottom of the barrel, which is very unfair.
Yes. And the hours
really
suck.
critical. Yeah, you guys are working hard.
Yes. 4 a.m. to whatever time, and you got to prep and cook. And I was like, what was I thinking? Like, wasn't money really that important to me then? Yes. But now, looking hindsight, I was like, I would never do anything for the money ever again. That's a lesson learned for sure.
When you look at the amount of money they offer too as a bonus, it's a lot of money when you're young.
Exactly.
But then
it was only $10,000, broken up every 3 years. So I was like, what was I doing? Like,
that's what I try to tell guys all the time. I'm like, that's a big bonus. However, if you extend that out, you're only getting $6, $7, $8, $10,000 extra.
It's funny that you say it's only $10,000, but I know what you mean. But I mean, there are people out there that 17, 18 years old, when they hear that number, it's like, oh my God, $10,000. What? And all I got to do is sign the line, you know?
How long does it take you to save $10,000 if you never eat fast food? Right? Like, what if you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm with you, Rob. I don't say no to 10 grand.
But listen to the story of what she's trying to say. The money enticed her to go in possibly into a direction she shouldn't have gone into.
Right.
So listen to your heart. You know, pay attention to what your gut's telling you. Don't go after the green. Make sure you're making the right decision.
Right.
You know, making it for the right decision.
Right.
Making the decision for the right. Is that right?
I think you came out right, Rob.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
What'd you put in his coffee?
Extra.
Good. Perfect.
Extra sugar.
So after basic training, AIT, and everything, it wasn't but like a year and a half or so. You end up deploying.
No. I was at my main duty station for 1 month and 9 days.
Wow.
It's funny because I said
That's
that
specific.
knowing somewhat the story. You were actually in basic training, and there was a lot of interesting conversation about deployment, and about, you're not going to deploy, blah, blah, blah. And then someone came in and started talking about, you're going.
Yep. I didn't think that would, I don't know. I don't know what I expected joining the military. I just, with a regular job, you have like your 90 days and then slowly you take off the training wheels. Like now I'm going to be going to war and I'm going to be like real killers. Like I just traded in my college books for an M16. Like I don't think I'm ready to, go to war just yet. Like I don't think this is going to be good. So when I got deployed, I was like, oh my God, this is real, flying around in like helicopters and, we're finally at like Fob Echo and I'm there and it's dusty and it's crazy looking. And I'm like, and everyone looks scared, cause it's like wartime. It's time to go. I was like, oh my God. Like, I don't know if I made the right decision. This is like above my pay grade. I don't know if this was correct, but I ended up doing it. And it was hard. It was very surreal, and I feel like I should have thought it out a little bit better. At the time I felt like I was just like running away from or trying to like catch up to something. I've just ill prepared for stuff and I should have just kind of waited it out and thought about it a little bit more. Like, don't go after the money. Is this what you really want to do? Think it out a little better. Why are you being so competitive with your sister? Like, why are you doing these things?
So in hindsight, what would you have done different?
I would have finished school.
Okay.
Would have stayed in college, finished school, would have went as an officer and probably the Air Force. Probably what I would have done.
That sounds actually pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have done
That's
that.
probably a good idea.
Yeah, we could have done that too, maybe.
I wasn't smart enough for the
No, I wasn't either. They wouldn't take me.
The Marines wouldn't take me. Next question.
Same.
Oh, gosh.
Same.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so you're ahead of the curve.
But so you were over there, doing like most people on the FOB. You were working out and, trying to stay in shape and everything. And kind of tell us what was going on there. What happened?
So, of course, you guys know. I'm sure you guys have all been deployed, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you're deployed, all there is to do is work out. So I'm working out like I'm training for some sort of like fitness competition. Like I'm working out 3 times a day. I'm really pushing it. I'm, running 2 miles super fast. I'm doing all my sit-ups and push-ups like I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just maxing everything out. And one of the symptoms were if you get a 300 on your PT test, you get 2 days off. And during this time, it was like January, and I was experiencing extreme fatigue. And I thought maybe it's like the war. I'm 24.
And how many months have you been there at that point?
Like 3 months.
Okay.
Right? About 3 months in December. So I'm thinking I'm so tired because like what's going on and what I'm exposed to. And I'm in war. I'm like a child. Like when I'm barely tying my shoes, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm thinking that's why I'm so exhausted. Like that's the reason why. But little did I know that that was like one of the symptoms of what we're going to be getting to shortly, I'm sure. So I'm working out a ton, and one day I decide, I'm going to I started doing these weird stretches, and I was like pulling up my leg up, to my chest and like just holding it there. And I ended up like seeing this lump sticking out of my leg, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And so I'm like trying to push it, prodding it, moving it. It wouldn't move. It didn't hurt. And, and the only way I could see it is if I pulled my leg up like really high up to my chest. And I was like, that's weird.
How big was it?
It was huge. It was probably like the size of an orange, but you couldn't see it unless I pulled my leg up to my chest. So like laying back and pull your leg
in your groin area.
In my groin area. So I couldn't see it. Like if I stood up, you couldn't see it. If I was walking, I couldn't feel it. Nothing. It was like embedded in the muscle really far. And the only way I saw it was if I was laying down and I was stretching with my leg on my chest. And so I was like, oh, that's strange. So I show my roommate, show my first sergeant, I show a couple of friends, and everybody thinks something's wrong, except for me. And I'm thinking, they can't.
You're feeling fine other than fatigue.
I'm just so tired. Like, no matter how much rest I get, I'm just so exhausted. So I'm just like, that's probably normal. I mean, it's Christmas time. My family's not here. We're getting bombed all like even more. It's cold. Like that's probably why I'm tired. But that's not what it was. It was a rare cancer.
So at that moment, when was it that you had it looked while you were there? So what made you go and get it actually looked at? Okay. So my whole motivation was because I was so exhausted and I was so tired that if all these unprofessional individuals think something's wrong, the doctors for sure is going to put me in quarters. And I'm going to get some more rest. And I'm like, that's like, I need that. Like I need those 2 days to just sleep and go to bed. So I showed the doctors or the medics. Didn't think anything of it. I was just like, there's nothing wrong. Like, come on. Like, and then, I never knew you can get cancer in your leg. Yeah. I thought it was like breast cancer, lung cancer, brain cancer, stomach cancer, like all the ones you hear about and you see about. I didn't know that you could get cancer in the leg. So it just didn't make any sense. Plus I've grown up like super athletic, very flexible and fast. Like anything that I've done, I've just excelled very well in like physical aspect. So for this to pop out of nowhere, it just was like, well, I didn't do anything or hurt myself. I don't know where this is coming from. Like it's probably it just didn't make any sense to me. So I showed the medics and, she's like pushing on it. Her name is Captain May. She's like pushing on it, trying to figure out what's going on. And she looks really concerned, but she's not saying anything to me at all. And I'm like, well, if she's not saying anything, maybe it's not that bad. So I was like, okay. She's like, we're going to send you out tonight to Baghdad. And I was like, okay, cool. That sounds like fun, right? We're going to go to like a bigger base or a bigger FOB. There's going to be better food. There's going to be more security. We're not going to get bombed. It's going to be clean halls. Like it's going to be a good vacation versus staying at this tiny little, bullseye where everyone keeps like shooting mortars at us. I'm like,
it hasn't occurred to you that like they're sending you like this is a big deal.
Yeah, I didn't even know. And
you thought it was going to be a quick trip analysis, come back in a couple of days or a day.
Yeah, exactly. So I was going to sleep, right? I was going to sleep more.
Hotel Baghdad.
Hotel Baghdad. That should be a movie. That's a good one. Hotel Baghdad. That's good. So I tell my roommate and a couple of friends, and they all are like, hey, here's a list of stuff we want from Baghdad. Can you get us like these Nike shoes, this food, like all this stuff? I'm like, yeah, sure. So they're giving me a list of stuff to bring back. So I have everything. I'm ready. Get on the helicopter. Super scary ride. Get to the hospital. We do a CT scan, I believe. And I had to go there to get a CT scan because, we didn't have that at my FOB. So I get that done. And the doctor comes over. He's, doesn't seem hesitant, didn't really seem concerned about anything. And he's like, well, we can for sure know that there's like blood flowing in and out, but this is your choice. You can go back to Fob Echo or you can go to Landstuhl, Germany. We highly suggest that you go to Landstuhl to get an MRI, but it's your choice, like whatever you want to do. I was like, okay, cool.
Doesn't sound like very good medical.
No, I was going to say, why would they even allow you if there's so much concern to have a choice? Instead, it's you're going to Germany.
No, he gave me an option, and I was like,
Really?
the further away I go, the more sleep I get.
What would you? I mean, so let's just. I don't want to fast forward too much, but
Okay.
if you would have not chosen Germany,
I would have died.
let's just be frank here. I mean, somebody obviously didn't understand the impact of what they were witnessing and giving you proper guidance in a way of, listen, Brandi, you may want to go back, but you're not going back. We got to get you to Germany and we got to do it quick, you know?
And the whole time that you're motivated, you just want to catch some
More
rest.
rest, because nobody was saying anything. They
Yeah.
weren't saying anything.
So at this point, you still don't know anything other than
don't.
you're going to get more tests. So you can,
More tests. I need an MRI.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
like you think about how tired you have to be like, okay, I'm just gonna keep on getting on there. Like, like I can take a nap. All right,
I was
whatever.
so tired, and the whole
That's
time
profound.
I was sleeping the entire time. I was so exhausted, so tired. I slept for days and days and days and days.
Were they asking you questions about this, like
No.
about your sleep and
No,
stuff like that?
They weren't, you know, I had like a list of my appointments and where I had to be in the times, so that there was nobody like asking me or trailing
any
me.
blood work or anything done at this point?
Nope, nothing. at all.
Really?
So nobody realized that like you're just so exhausted you can barely function.
I mean, I would have thought that the captain or, or someone in Baghdad would have at least said, based on that, we should at least run a blood work panel just to see if their white blood cell count or something. I mean,
The orders were the CT scan,
What year was that?
2009.
scary.
That was a bloody year too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think like anybody listening. We're not indicting any of the medical professionals involved in this scenario because they've got so much to deal with.
And I
They're
think
at war
that's
too.
why I was asking what year we're going to, because medical professionals are we hope to be the best at what they are, and their intent is to take care of people the best they can. And I don't think there was any malintent.
No.
Of course.
And the reason I asked the year because that, like you said, that 2009, 2010 was like getting after it time frame, and very bloody battles and stuff those years. And I'm not negating anything. Get that out, but I'm saying like their workload versus like
Exactly.
the things that they were seeing, like amputees, gunshot
Right.
wounds,
Right.
explosions, IED, all of those things that they were experiencing at the time. I think they were probably, and I'm paraphrasing maybe how they were thinking, but like I think it's benign. Probably it's got blood going in and out of it. I think it'd be good.
Yeah.
Like they're like you still got your leg type deal, and not
Yeah.
really taking it to the seriousness that they should.
fair point. Yeah.
Plus, I mean, I'm sure they ran into plenty of people that genuinely were malingering.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
We're like,
Oh, I'm tired. I don't want to go out anymore.
Sure.
Top, those type of guys, and or females, and be like, they're like, you can go back. You're good. Like, so there was all that going on. And unfortunate for you that you're like, there actually is a problem. Like that, that person that we see with a bad back. You're like, no, like it's broken. Like you can see that it's broken. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
So yeah, not to negate anything.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. It wasn't something. I mean, it was an emergency, but it's not like physically an emergency. There's no blood. There's no, someone's not been shot. So they're probably like, okay, she's fine. You want to go back? Are you playing around? Are you really exhausted? And I wasn't even telling anybody I was tired. I was just exhausted. I don't think I was expressing that to people. I just had a lump in my leg. It's like, what is this? I don't know.
yeah, and you didn't connect the two.
No, of course not.
Were they asking the questions like, have you been fatigued? Have you been like?
I can't recall. I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah. But it's such a rare cancer. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't even see it in their medical professional field ever. And if they do, it might be like once. It's not a high percentage of people that have it.
So so you left there, go to Germany, and they run the MRI, and immediately they went ahead and told you. Yeah.
So this entire time I am in contact with my mom, and I'm, on the phone with her and letting her know I'm like, I'm in Iraq, now I'm in Baghdad, or Iraq is Baghdad, but I'm in Baghdad, now I'm in I'm in Germany, and she's like kind of concerned. She's more concerned than everybody else, where I can sense that like on the phone.
Mother's intuition.
Yeah. She's like, you know, what's going on? You know, why are you going to Germany? Like, for what? Why do you need an MRI? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I have this lump in my leg. Like, I don't know what it is. And she's like, a lump in your leg? Like, what is that? And how long have you had it for? And does it hurt? And she's asking all these questions. I'm like, I'm too tired to answer all this stuff. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, the doctors aren't even saying anything. Like, I don't know. Let's just wait until they say something. So when I get to Germany, so I'm in contact with her all the time. Get to Germany, have this like manila folder, and it's like a vacation, right? So then I tell the rest of my friends who have given me a list of stuff to get for them from Baghdad, and I tell them, hey, I'm not, going there anymore. I'm going to Germany. Do you guys need anything? And they're like, yeah, man, bring back these chocolate gummy bears. Like, if you can get like these good shoes, like, they want all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, just like, let me know. And I have like lists of stuff to get people. Right. And so I'm like, okay, I go to like this mall that's there. Like, I drink a couple beers. Like, I'm just like, oh, I'm just so relaxed. I went and got a tattoo. Like, I'm just chilling. Like, okay, this is like a good vacation. It's kind of like normalcy. So,
were you still fatigued at this point?
I was exhausted. And the entire time I'm still going to the gym. I'm still working out, still doing stuff. I just didn't know, what was really going on with my body. I just thought I was just tired. Like, I thought I was mentally exhausted because of what I was experiencing. Like, we were getting bombed and mortars and like things weren't, it was just crazy. It was really scary. It's very surreal, and I'm like,
it's a natural assumption.
Yeah,
you should be exhausted.
We never knew when the bombs or the mortars were going to be coming in. Like, the alarm system didn't work. Like, it was like your senses were on 1,000. So I was just drained. So I thought that's why I'm so tired. So when I'm sleeping, I'm just trying to get this rest because I'm like in chronic fatigue and like stress mode 24/7. So I thought that's what it was. But back to Germany. So I get to Germany. So I get this manila folder. All of my appointments are there. I go to the doctors the first time, and I remember him telling me that he hopes that it's not Ewing sarcoma, and he hopes it's a nerve sheath tumor. And I'm like, what the hell what are those things? Like, what is that? And I didn't even think about it. I was like, okay, like, I didn't know what those two names were, so I didn't associate with cancer. So I just was like, okay, that's weird. I've never heard of these terms, medical terms. I don't know what it is. So I didn't really think anything of it. So I got my MRI, got it back, and he's like, it's a tumor. I'm like, okay, well, what's that? What's a tumor? I've never met anybody with a tumor before. Like all the people that I knew that had cancer, I just knew they were bald. And I didn't know why. Like, I didn't know why. I thought having cancer made you bald, not that the chemotherapy made you bald. So I'm not bald, so I shouldn't have cancer, right? Like, I'm not very, very smart, but that's what I just, associated with, because everybody I knew that was sick, that had cancer, they were bald. So I'm like, damn, that person isn't, it just didn't, I didn't understand. So never met anybody with a tumor, not that I knew of. Like, people, maybe they probably did, and I just didn't know, the extent of the cancer and how it works. So when they tell me it's a tumor, I go back and I tell my mom, and I remember her just being like really scared and thinking, this is really serious. And like, why are you still acting like you're so like nonchalant about it? I'm like, like, what is a tumor? Like, what is that? She's like, it could be cancer. Like, it could be cancer, it could be benign. And I'm like, what? Are you sure? Like, what do you mean? Like, how do you get cancer? I thought you had to be like way older, bad health habits. Like I'm running my fastest miles. I have a 6-pack. Like, I was in shape, like the best shape of my life. So how could I get cancer? Like, how is this even possible? So just like, I was in such denial for so long. So get to my next appointment, because we have to do the biopsy to find out what type of tumor that it is. And then that's when he tells me that, like, he's ushering me out, and he's like, we're going to hope and pray that it's not Ewing sarcoma. We're going to pray that it's a nerve sheath tumor. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm going to look these up now, because he said it twice. So I go and I look it up, and now I know that it's cancer. And I'm like, oh my God. So then I stopped going to the gym, because I think that if I'm running, that I might like knock something loose, and it might, start festering somewhere else in my body. So I'm like, I'm not working out anymore. I start getting super depressed. I start just taking tons of Benadryl, like way too much Benadryl, but every thought that I have, it's about death and I'm going to die and I'm going to be meeting Jesus or God, or like, how the hell did this happen? Like, how did I not notice? Like, how did I get this? Was I a bad person? Is this my karma? Like, how is this all happening to me? I just didn't make any sense of why this is happening. I'm only 24 years old. Like, I was doing something great for my family. Now I'm about to die, you know? So I was just popping tons of Benadryl and trying to sleep and mask, like, you know, all these questions that I had. And then it was finally the day to find out what type of cancer I had. So I go into the hospital and the doctor sits me down and he's like, he looks all like scared and stuff. And he's like sweating a bunch. And I'm like, this is like, I probably have like the bad one. You know, I don't even know what it is. But he's like, he misdiagnosed me. And he tells me that it's a nerve sheath tumor. And I'm like, okay, well, it's not the bad one that the doctor didn't want me to have. So I'm like, okay, cool. So now I know what type of cancer it is and what's going to be happening. So I look up nerve sheath tumor. You know, you can like, it's not as bad as Ewing's. The mortality rate is way less. So I'm like, okay. So I explain it to my mom, and she starts screaming on the phone, and she's really, you know, just sad about what's going to be happening. And she informs me that she's going to quit everything. She's going to quit her job. She's going to leave Texas, and she's going to come move with me to Walter Reed. And she leaves everything. Everything. Awesome, right?
Awesome, Mom.
Leaves everything to come take care of me. And we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if she was going to have money, where to, you know, sleep, live, eat, anything.
Wow.
And my sister's deployed still at the same time. And my sister has a son. His name is Donovan. He was 2 at the time. So she's watching him. So she comes with him in hand, a little baby, a little 2-year-old. And he's, you know, terrible too. So he's acting a crazy donkey. But he, you know, they come and they sleep next to me in my little hospital bed. They have like a little pull-out couch, and the military ends up giving her a stipend. So she stays at, I think it's called the Monroe House. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. So she stays over there for like the entire duration. Donovan's in a, some sort of, it's not preschool. What is it? I don't have kids. Daycare.
I was going to say, what's before preschool? Wait, no.
Yeah.
Think back.
Me on the spot there.
You got 7 of them.
I got all
man.
these
You oughta
answers.
know.
I got them. My Rolodex started spinning, and I didn't have the answer.
Yeah, so he's in daycare. He's there. We have food, everything. So she's my non-medical attendant, and she takes care of me the entire duration of it. Wow. She was a huge support system.
So when was it, though, that they finally got the right diagnosis?
Yeah. So when I finally get to Walter Reed, by this time, so you know when you disturb cancer, it grows, right? That's what cancer is. It just grows and it grows and it grows and grows. So when they did the biopsy the first time, it grew, right? And it's just growing and it's growing. And they did another biopsy, and now it's like really massive. It's so huge. It's like the size of the baby watermelons. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's in my groin area in my leg.
Now can you see it?
Now I can see it. Now I can feel it. Now I can't extend my leg out. I can't bend my leg.
Oh, wow.
And I can't put pressure on my left leg because my leg is going numb.
And
now
this is just a matter of weeks.
I was going to say, let's go back and talk about the time frame here.
It was huge. This was probably a month.
3 months in country, about a month after that. So 4 months in total of being from country to Walter Reed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you got something the size of a watermelon.
It was
huge.
In your leg. Huge. So big. I couldn't even put my jeans over it. Like, it was so big.
I can see why you might be a little alarmed.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That's terrifying.
The red flag going up there.
Yeah.
Yep. So after that happens, it was very terrifying. So it was about, we'll say like 3 weeks to a month from initially getting the CT scan to going to Walter Reed and finding out that it's Ewing sarcoma and not a nerve sheath tumor. So
explain that, what that is for our listeners who may not be familiar with that cancer.
So Ewing sarcoma it's a soft tissue cancer. So it means that whatever area that it's affecting, it's all of that. So it could be in the bone, it could be the soft tissue, it could be the blood vessels, like all of that area, that whole circumference is affected. So usually they'll cut it off. They'll, just take off whatever that area. And usually it affects like the limbs, so the legs, the arms, like the hip area, sometimes the ribs.
Wait, when you say take it off, you mean like the leg,
amputation?
The arm?
They'll just cut it off.
Not like the muscle, but we're talking the entire leg.
The entire leg, yes.
Wow.
Because it's a high rate of reoccurring. So they want to make sure it's gone.
Wow.
It affects everything. So it's just
whatever tissue it's in.
Yeah, it will affect
every
everything.
tissue of that type is.
It will go to the bone, and it's called a bone cancer. But if you catch it in a early enough stage, you can salvage your leg, which I did, thank goodness. So I caught mine in 1B. Okay. And then other individuals who may not be as lucky will have it, in that bone. They'll have to get it amputated, or it spreads to the lungs, the spinal cord, and the brainstem. Yeah, it was pretty intense, right? You go from like being healthy and being able to run and do all these amazing things to you might have to get your leg cut off, and life is going to be different, and you might die. And it's like, what is going on? How did this happen? What? How did this happen?
Did they have any answers?
There's no answers. They couldn't tell me anything. Wow. Nothing.
Which is worse. Because you almost want to know root cause analysis. What was it? What did I do something? Did I say, was I in the wrong place? Did I drink something, eat something?
Yeah.
We all want answers as to how that happens, but
there was none, and there still aren't any answers. It's not something that's hereditary.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's like the luck of the draw, basically.
From your research, how many people have you found, or does even 107 Foundation, do they know the number of people who are served in the military that's had this type of sarcoma? Is it something?
A lot of them that do, they've passed away.
Okay.
So when you get Ewing's, not everybody, because I've been a survivor for about 11 years.
Congratulations.
So
That's
thank
awesome.
you. I know I made it. Oh my gosh. So not everybody passes away, but there's a very high risk of it metastasizing somewhere else. So maybe it's not going to be in the leg. It will be in the lung. It will be somewhere else, but because it spreads, it jumps around everywhere.
And without pattern.
It just
randomly spreads.
Yes.
Because it gets into your blood cells and transports to a different.
I'm not quite sure why it happens, but so there's lots of people who have some sort of sarcoma cancer, right? Or Ewing's or wherever it's at. And if they're able to cure it, it's gone, it's in remission for a while, like it will reappear somewhere else. And it's now maybe in the breast, or maybe it's something else, but it came from the initial cancer.
Holy smokes. And do people who've served overseas have a higher rate of this cancer than the general population?
I am not too sure, but according to what I've been looking at, yes.
Okay. Okay. So it looks that way.
It looks
but
like
all
that.
the numbers aren't necessarily in.
I don't know about the numbers. I've just, I'm not a scientist, a doctor, or researcher, I'll put that out there. But what I've read, it's just a lot of them are coming from deployment. And it's pretty sad.
So,
but there's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of people that have it. There's just not. There's not a lot of people that have sarcoma cancer. It's very rare.
So, just to kind of, you went through all the treatment, had to have the chemo, lost your hair, went through.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, went through all of what your greatest fears were at that time frame. Lost a big chunk out of your leg.
Yes.
As well.
Yes, they removed my entire adductor muscle, and I was an athlete my entire life. So I played basketball, soccer, football. I did, everything. Track. I ran. I did swimming, ice skating. Like you name it, I did, and I was the best at it. Like I was playing on varsities. Basketball teams when I was 13 years old. I was great. I was good. And so my whole life had been taken away because that's all I've known myself as being somebody very athletic. And that's why I joined the military, to push myself to the brink, to do physical things. And now I can't even run anymore. It's like, how, and like, what am I supposed to do now? How is this even fair?
Wow.
It's just, it was really hard. It was really hard.
How long, were you in Wall 3 before they're like, all right, let's take this thing out?
So we had like a regimen. So I had to do 6 months of chemotherapy or 6 rounds of chemotherapy. And then after the 6th treatment, I would do the surgery. That was to shrink the cancer down. But they weren't even sure that the cancer was going to respond. They kept telling me that they're going to have to cut my leg off. And they weren't very sure, right? It was horrible. And I had the doctors, and they all thought I was going to die. So I had this one chaplain who come in, and he'd lay this like huge crucifix on me, and he'd like pray over me. And he was so dramatic. He was Hispanic, and he'd ask me like, which God do I believe in, and like who do I think I'm going to, and have I found a religion? And he was just so dramatic about stuff. And I was like, I don't want to die.
Yeah. It'd almost be like when he enters the door, be like, all right, I'm good. I'm good.
Just get out. Get out. You know, it's just.
Mom, take that away.
And that's what she did.
Good mom. That's right.
She did that. She, at one point, because it was just such like pessimistic energy and like people were so negative about what was going on. My mom was like, you guys can't come in anymore, unless you're giving her treatment or food, like you can't come in. And she put a sign up that said, do not enter. And so they stopped coming in, and, we kind of collected our thoughts back together, and we were like, we have to fight, and we have to make it. But it was hard. So to go to the doctors, that's somewhere where you go to have answers, and for them not to have answers and them not to believe that you're going to be living.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Well, and not to know the reason why it all began. You learned it's not hereditary, which if you at least heard that, you would know, okay, well, I got it from, some ancestor. But not knowing anything, makes it even much more difficult, because you're sitting there beating yourself up probably for some period of time wondering, did I do this? Did I do that? Mm-hmm. I'm sure it was going through your head trying to figure out what you did wrong to cause where you are right now.
Right. And I was trying to figure out, I kept thinking they had the wrong person, because usually it happens to Caucasian boys who are little.
Really? That's the predominant.
Yes.
Wow.
I am.
Young.
Yeah, like
young
6 to
Caucasian
14.
boys. Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, how the hell did this happen?
Wow.
But, and so, I play like little jokes to my mom, because my mom's white. And I'm like, Mom, you gave it to me. But it's not the case.
I bet she loved that.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Okay, so since this has happened, though, you've linked up, like we had talked about, with 107 Foundation. And one of the things that, since they've been on the podcast, they've put out so much tremendous information that, Congress is changing things and helping,
Wow.
But 107, with the research that they're performing, they're primarily a research-based organization that, we talked offline to Jason about registering on the burn pit registry. And it's so important, because this is these types of topics like we're talking about, your cancer, all kinds of different things that are happening to individuals at a very early age that should not have this type of stuff happen. It's the Agent Orange of today.
Yes, exactly.
And it's very scary, because like you happen to be deployed at this time frame, and it came very rapidly, but there are people who had multiple deployments, and then they come home and they may even be separated and retired, like, Ron Schur, who was a Medal of Honor recipient that we were talking about, that passed away from cancer, and, go through all these experiences and don't die. And then they come home and then they find out they got this thing, living inside of them that's taking over their body. And it's so profoundly sad. It's an important message to everybody who's listening who did deploy to pay attention.
Well, and these are generally, and this is just anecdotally from my experience, and your experience kind of confirms that, like, these are fast acting illnesses. It's not like, I think a lot of people have this perception, you get a cancer diagnosis and it's maybe you end up with a year or two, and it's a longer fight. But
my brother died of leukemia, and I talked about that, and he was in the Navy during the Gulf War time frame, and
wow.
He got leukemia. He was working every day, and he just had a flu that he couldn't get rid of, and he went to the doctor, and they're like, "Hey, man, you got leukemia."
Yeah.
And he did through all the treatments and everything, and went into remission for a few months actually, and he went back for a checkup, and it came back tenfold. Yeah. And we lost him like 30 days maybe later.
Wow.
Well, we don't think about when you think about the, like we were talking about last night, Levenchuk, and you being a 120 millimeter mortarman.
Yeah.
and the concussion aspects, and traumatic brain injury and stuff from that. And in the manual, there is, you shouldn't do any more than.
Yeah, they've got a round count you're supposed to not exceed.
But nobody really pays attention to that kind of stuff.
Well, the other thing that they don't mention either is what's in that propellant.
Right. That's what I was getting ready to go into. So it's the unknown now.
Yeah, because you're breathing it.
Yeah.
There's heavy metals in there, and there's all kinds of crazy. These
So
are
the ammunition's on the
space-age
ship.
propellants.
Whatever radiation was around there on the ship, perhaps. Whatever, you know what I mean? And you think, oh, he was in the Navy. He was out on a ship, you know?
And I say this, my brother never drank a beer, never smoked a cigarette, never took a dip, like 6'6", 230 pounds of like solid muscle man. And, you know, to watch him go from, you know, a walking Thor to about 100 pounds when he passed, 190 pounds, 180 pounds maybe when he passed away. It was just ridiculous to see.
I'm sorry.
And to watch that, you know, and we hear about the Agent Orange stuff and then all the things that we don't put together. But like you said, like the stuff that comes off the rounds and then the nuclear, you know, reactor, you know, things that power stuff and
Think
all those things.
about all the wars that were in, you know, over time, and especially, you know, prior to us arriving on that soil, there was a lot of other stuff that went down.
True.
And, you know, they talked about even the sandstorms, you know, something as simple as that, the particles within the sand, you know, that rolls into sandstorms, or the burn pits that nobody thought of. And they're burning
the guys who are they're operating in a theater that has no conventional, I shouldn't say conventional, but they're not operating above board in any sense, you know, like Syria, the stuff those guys got exposed to.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're completely off the map at that point, you know, and I've heard stories from them about some of the things they've been exposed to, and it's alarming. It's extremely alarming.
Yeah, I think the good thing is, like, you know, with your case and then some coming on, you know, later on in the military, I think that's just awareness is coming to that slowly but surely, and it's gone more from like you just, you know, draw the short stick and that's how cancer goes and that's that stuff, and
right.
now you know, we're starting to tie it to things.
Absolutely.
And that once we give it a thing, then we can give it, you know, an ability to work on how to fix said things.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and the earlier you catch it, you know,
and you start
better chance you
scanning
have
for it, and then we can come up with a scanning process and run this. People that went through this can go get checked for these different types of antibodies and so on and so forth.
Well, it starts giving people like you, I would think, Brandi, too, an opportunity to get clearer answers, because now you start seeing, oh, you're not alone. It's just, yeah, you got this cancer, but there were a lot of other people that. So I was going to ask you, from the same fob, from the same base, what else came out?
There was a bunch of us that ended up getting sick. There's like 12 of us, not the exact same fob, like the same vicinity, same area. So there's about 12 of us that were on the ward. It was the 7th ward at Walter Reed, and they all died.
So wait, this is during the same time frame that you're there.
Yep, all of us. I remember seeing one, and I don't remember her name. It was my sister's NCO, so she came from Balad, and she was there, and she ended up, you know, being sick, and she ended up passing away. But yeah, there was a bunch of us that were on there, and all of us came from deployment, and every single one of them passed away. So this is like, so they had a room. It was like a smaller room, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it was based off seniority, but it kind of like was. So like the bigger rooms were the people who were there the longest, and it's kind of making them comfortable, and, you know, but that person at that last room never made it out alive, right? So I would slowly be bumping up to room, and gradually getting bigger and bigger, and finally I'm at the biggest room, was room 7131, and I remember just looking at my mom like, you know, like, this is it. Like, I'm bald, I'm like sick, I'm not strong, I'm so weak, I can't even like sign myself out of paper, out of anywhere. My mom has to sign out for me because my signature and my writing is just not legible. Like, you cannot read anything. I'm so weak, and I have to be pushed around in a wheelchair everywhere. I'm just so sick. But sitting like in the hospital bed and just knowing, like, and I don't know if I'm going to make it out alive. Like, I don't know what's going to be happening.
This has got to be hard. Mentally challenging.
And
at this
it was
point,
so hard.
You couldn't strike back with your physical side of it because you're too weak.
Exactly. And when I tell people who have cancer, that I always say that it's the most challenging thing mentally for you, because it's going to take all your strength away. Like, the individual you think you are, like, strength-wise, is like, that's not even the type of fight it is. It's all mental. All of it is mental.
So somebody who survived such, you know, a traumatic event, and like being so weak and thinking that you're on, you know, death's bed, I'm sure people wonder, like, from who you were before, right? obviously there's huge change. So what kind of appreciation have you gained for like life itself from what you had then to like, I'm a survivor and I know what death pretty much feels like. Like,
I feel like I definitely, I don't want to say like sweat the small stuff because that's different for everybody else, but it's like I am so less stressed about stuff because I know it's going to be okay. Like it's going to work out somehow, some way. There, the sun's going to come back out. So I'm really not like, a lot of people feel like I don't care about stuff, and it's not that I don't care. It's I just don't feel like it's worth stressing over and losing like lots of sleep over anything because I know it's going to be fine.
Yeah,
it's going to work out.
I mean, I've heard people in your type of situation that said they felt like they won the lottery. They got a second shot, and you know what?
Exactly.
I'm going to enjoy it this time.
Exactly. And do you know how motivated it made me? Oh my God! I opened up a business. I wrote a book. I went and got my master's degree. I've done so much with this second part of my life that I probably would have waited because I'm like a perfectionist. Like I want to wait for the perfect time. Like, does this sound good? And, should I do it right now? But now it's just like, just do it. I don't even have the answers, and I just do it.
Yeah.
awesome.
Time is now.
Yeah.
Like, you're never promised a second. Like you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you really don't. I think it's cool that we have you on now, especially in light of the last 2 years and coronavirus, because so many people have experienced loss that they didn't expect, I think. And I think that's like, it's cool to hear you put words to that. I think a lot of people that they lost somebody they didn't expect to lose, and now they're like, okay, I'm going to stop wasting time, seize the day, appreciate the little things.
Stop sweating the small stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say it for you. I mean, that's exactly right.
It's true.
I don't think you have to have cancer to appreciate your message right now. I don't think you have to be a survivor, because I think most of us can look around at friends, or maybe we're the ones who survived or whatever.
Agreed,
Right.
everybody. Agreed.
So that's pretty
Super
cool.
awesome story too, man. Like,
Oh, thank you.
I think we talk about, like, you hear me say this, and you guys, holistic, right? I keep using that word because holistic, like physically, mentally, it means everything. And the fact that you're an athlete before, and you're in really good shape, and you're working out, and then basically, you're stretching one day and you feel something different, right? And that's being aware of your body and understanding, like, hey, that ain't right? So, and that just tells people, like, hey, I need to, take care of my body holistically and do self-checks and all those type of things to make sure that I'm catching those things like you did. And because it literally saved your life. Like, stretching one day literally saved your life.
Right. And I feel like if
That's
you're
so true. I didn't think about that. But the fact that you were so in tune with your body because you were an athlete made you realize it.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah.
Why, I'm like, I never do this stretch. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but my body, something's like, hey, feel your leg. Like, something's not
A
right.
little tight in one area. Like, I'm going to stretch out today and get this groin loosened up a little bit. And then you're like, oh, that's not right.
That's not right. And I feel like our bodies communicate with us what's wrong. If you just listen and you're in tune with it, you can heal. You can fix things. You can monitor it. You can give the nutrition or whatever it is, like, to that area that needs it. Had I not been stretching, not listened to myself like you were saying, probably could have been a different story.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just give in to your fatigue and don't take the willpower to go to the gym, and then you wouldn't have been stretching.
Well, I think
I mean, it's like
never thought about
any
that.
little thing, like you're doing it because you need a couple days off of work,
Right? Because
you're so tired and you're sick of your leadership. So you're like, I need a break.
Yeah.
So it's funny how.
Where do you speak to guys like, in our organization that is the opposite of, like, I'm tired. It's like, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll be good.
Yeah.
And they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Well,
and
that's my fear, Jason. Like, that's what I think. That's like my deep, dark fear that kind of keeps me up at night. I'm like, how many of my buddies are out there sucking it up, and they're exhausted, and they're going to pay the price for it because they're not listeing.
Well, like you came.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yesterday,
you weren't feeling well.
I was at the urgent care.
Yeah.
I have like an asthma type thing I've developed, from, I don't know, beating on my lungs and stuff like that. But because of 107 Foundation, I'm like, all right, I know poor air quality days. I have chest pain and shortness of breath. So if it lasts more than an hour, I go in. And I go into urgent care, and I'm like, do the scans, do the X-rays, do the blood work. Does everything look right? And
Every time you're afraid that something's going to be there because it's real.
Terrifying, man.
Yes.
You can't breathe and you can feel it.
Yeah.
And that's an unusual feeling. And I don't, we still haven't quite figured out what it is. But, I'm going in and getting checked and stuff like that.
You have to take care of yourself.
But I was at the urgent care yesterday and I missed Ronnie Kubik's dedication. But
And partial to my fault, I didn't invite you early enough.
I didn't want to point that out. But a few years ago, I would have just been like, it's.
Well, I kind of felt like you were a little
thing.
bit, but I could tell you were alarmed. And then, when you said, where's the closest urgent care, that's when I got a little concerned. And especially because of what's going on in situations like you described, not only about yourself, but about those that were in the same location. People need to be paying attention. This is serious stuff. It's listen to your body. If you don't feel well, it might be a cold. It could be something worse.
That's right. And right now in our organization, and Paul, this is a great time to talk about like what we're doing, and hopefully senior leader in the general purpose force is that listening and they take it to heart and they try to implement it in their organization as well. But what we're doing inside our organization right now is called the Phalanx program, and it's the holistic view. It goes from young soldiers to like education, career development, and then holistic health assessment. And in that, for the senior leaders in our organization, and working down to the probably the staff sergeant level, is the SPAR program that I'm going to. Very fortunate.
What does SPAR stand for?
But I will tell you what it does.
What is it?
I'm going to add to like 900 acronyms the Army has, but. Soldier readiness something, but anyway, the point of it is like it's about a 30-day program, and several of our guys are there right now that does exactly what we don't do, and that's check us from head to toe, inside and out, holistically, mentally, blood work, diet. Every single thing.
If nothing else, just to get a baseline.
That's good.
Yeah, and it's like 30 days, and you go there, and then like if you're like, this hurts, that hurts, this is bad. This
So it's
whatever.
like a wellness program.
Wellness, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
Literally everything.
That's good.
And I know it's probably not conducive for like every organization in the Army, but
y'all are special.
well, I mean, we volunteered a few extra times, I guess. Yeah. But I don't know how else to put that. But at the same time, like, they're starting to recognize things that can come up, like with Paul and your breathing and others that have just been rowing, and they're starting to like try to, the Army in general, because somebody's paying for it, right? The Army in general is seeing things that need to be fixed and changed, and we're slowly starting to put Ranger and soldier first to show like, hey, we want to take care of you because you're going to have to live when you get out of the Army, and
Right.
however we can get that to the best of its ability, we'll try to do for you.
Well, we should have seen this somewhat coming. I mean, somewhat. I mean, because you had in Vietnam, you had Agent Orange. In Gulf War, you had Gulf War syndrome.
Yeah, but look how long it took for them to even acknowledge.
I know, but
it
it's
was
like
20 years before they even acknowledged that was a thing.
Yeah.
Because I remember early 2000s, the Gulf War syndrome came up, and it's like, okay, this is a thing that could be happening, and there was the denial from the VA and from DOD. And
Because they know they're going to have to pay out.
Anything we have to put a price tag.
That's right. And unfortunately, that's what it is. And I'm sure it's the same right now.
It is.
Because we're going to start seeing more and more of them. We're going to have to start paying out for their care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was part of a class action, class A, what is
Class
it?
action.
Yeah.
Class action.
Review.
It was back in like 2010, and we went on for years, like 5 years, and then they finally come back with a verdict that it's like, they're dismissing it. I'm like, how? There's so many people that died during that time that are still not well. Like some of them are missing, parts of their bodies. Like how are you guys not even like making the links here? And it's all about money, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well,
of course,
money, culpability.
Nobody
Nobody wants to be culpable for killing service members.
True.
Well, I shouldn't say it that way, but nobody wants to be culpable for
He's like, yeah.
causing those kind of injuries. But,
Collateral damage.
But again, like you got to think about it, especially when it comes to the burn pits. Like, yeah, if you throw a bunch of batteries in a fire, like if you just applied even the most loose OSHA guidelines to some of the stuff that we have, some of the tasks we have to do in the military,
Right.
it would never fly. It would never pass muster.
I remember telling Chelsea though that just like when I was a kid, I lived out rurally, so we had a pit that we actually burned our trash in. I took it out there.
That's why you like Army food.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It was the burn
because
pit.
you're a product of your environment.
But but you're right. We didn't think anything of it. And when you're a soldier, you didn't think anything of burning your own poop and going out there. And although it was terrible to have to do or whatever, but you didn't. Somebody didn't go to you and tell you this could cause problems later on.
I didn't think that at all.
Wow, you're so young. It's like you said, you're a kid.
Yeah.
You think the military's taking care of you and they're looking out for your best interest, and they are largely. I'm not saying they're not, but there are things that I think a lot of we're just not told about. And it doesn't matter what rank you are, what level you are, you're just not always told everything, and you don't really have the opportunity to sit down and think about, is there medical conditions here that we should be, considering before we go and burn this? Or there, you don't think about that kind of stuff.
Aren't we taught to just execute?
Yes.
Not ask 100%. Any questions. So
yeah.
It's kind of, that's what happens.
And to a large extent, the damage is done. We did what we did. And, we can ask ourselves going forward, well, how do we prevent stuff like burn pits from happening again? Certainly there's some ways to avoid this. What's more important now, I think, is how do we take care of the people that are affected by this? How do we get, we have a GWAT liaison or case manager at every VA. You go in, you got to register with them when you get into the VA healthcare system, but you don't get screened for any of these things. They ask you about PTSD, but they don't ask you about TBI, although they might be now. I haven't switched VAs in a while. And, but it's just not on the radar yet. And why not?
Yeah.
Well, Chelsea's really pushing for that, not only in the VA hospitals, but really in regular hospitals. A nurse should say, oh, you were in the military, if they can bring around that conversation, and they should automatically, I hate to say assume, but jump to, let's make sure we're doing a full panel assessment. Let's make sure that we're looking and evaluating. I make sure the doctor is very much aware that there could be underlying things here. It may not be just a simple common cold or...
Yeah, well, sure. The problem is getting it into the insurance.
I was just going to say
that.
And
the medical billing, right?
Yep, that's the issue.
Yeah, and I had the same discussion. You talk about operator syndrome and the myriad of symptoms you have from that, which is, I'm sure, on your radar. So I went to see a specialist, Kevin Lace, Last Punisher author, phenomenal endocrinology outfit down in Florida. And, we went through, we came up with a plan, and I think surely I'll go back to the VA in New York and go to Northport. And, I've got his recommendations. It should be a simple matter of getting the prescriptions written, and, I'll be on, this treatment plan. There's no reason why we can't work this out. Their answer was, we're not going to prescribe you anything because it's off-label. Like the medicine you want is for breast cancer and these other things, and you don't have breast cancer, you're not a woman. I'm like, well, they've been used
for men
nationwide for men for this specific purpose forever. And I'm talking to a guy who's a Navy veteran, and he's like, look, yeah, your testosterone is 1 point above the bottom of the threshold. I'm like, you really think I was an Army Ranger competing, going, Belford was a fighter, and we did PT together. I kept up, and we had D1, D2, D3 athletes. I kept up with them, even though I wasn't one. Like, I wasn't doing that with the minimum amount of male testosterone that you can have. So clearly there's some
it's a proven fact that,
just your age.
Yeah. But, what his answer was, he's like, well, what am I supposed to put in for medical billing? What's the insurance code? I'm like, for one, you're being a fucking prick. Excuse me. Because why would I know that as a layperson?
Right.
And for two, of course there's not a medical code for operator syndrome. Like, it exists. I know it exists. We can see there's a problem from the labs, but you're going to, I'm beholden to some random insurance billing thing. So, and that was their answer. Wow. And so insurance. Here I am, still not treated. And my answer, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to a VA healthcare system that is supportive
wants to
of that.
cater to you and help you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's a proven fact that, you put all, the alpha males, if you will, in the room. Like it's nature for your like testosterone levels to ought to go up after being in that scenario over and over. And any endocrinologist will tell you that you have to, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And nobody can run at 100%, 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Your body can't do it.
Can't do it, man. Well, and you pay the price, for the damage. But
So you go around now, though, and try to share your story in a way in which you can help those cancer survivors or those people going through cancer and that type of stuff. So, you wrote a book, and want to talk about that, The Enemy Inside Me, which is really a great book that talks about much of what we just shared here on the podcast episode. But from your personal perspective and stuff of outlining, you go into detail of, 20, 30 hours, 2,200 hours. You're like getting serious into, there's a lot more that went on that wasn't shared within this episode of how you're feeling, what's going on around you, how you were reacting to the situation. And so what made you decide to do this? What made you decide to go ahead and write The Enemy Inside Me?
All right, here we go. So I started this, originally it was a journal. And because everybody thought I was going to die, pass away, making me update my will 1,000 times a day, I decided that I needed to leave something for my nephew, right? So I started documenting things that were going on, what we were doing, how he was reacting. And I was so upset that I was going to be dying, and not have a relationship with my nephew. I thought it was so unfair. It was like, God, that's terrible. I'm only 24. He's only 2. He's not going to remember anything that's going on right now. I know for sure. So I was like, if I could just write some stuff down and just a little dedication to him and what was going on. So I just started journaling the entire time from, I think it was the end of February to Veterans Day is when I finished. And it was just a journal, a huge journal. And then I made a promise to myself that day that my mom put the sign up, and she's gave me a little pep talk. She's like, listen, you can either give up and die, or you're going to have to push. You have strength. You can do it, basically. And I was like, all right, okay. I'm gonna start this little project, and if I get to live, I'm gonna make a book out of it somehow. I was like, I don't know how the hell I'm gonna do that. I don't know how. I don't even know anyone has written a book. I don't know what I'm doing, but that was a goal of mine. So when I joined the military, or I went back in the military, because they gave me the option to either get out, get medically retired at the time in 2010, or to stay in. So I was like, I'm going to try to stay in. I shouldn't have done that because, it didn't work for me at all. We already talked about that. Yeah. So I ended up getting medically retired in 2013. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? It's I really thought my whole life was the military. I wanted to be 20 years. That's my life. That's what I wanted to do. And now I'm kind of I don't know what I'm going to be doing. So I went back to school, got my master's, and I went in for writing. So I went to Savannah College of Art and Design.
Yep.
You might know it. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I went to SCAD and got my master's in writing, and I had to use something for my thesis. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I would really like to work on my journal and make it a book somehow. How can I do that? So I took my journal and I started using that for my thesis. So every time we had an assignment, I took a chunk out of my journal and I made it an essay. And at the end of it, I had a really nice thesis. Mm-hmm. And they read it, they loved it. Everybody was crying. They thought it was great. They're like, but you have to finish it. But I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I've been working on this for 2 years. It's finished. So I end up publishing it in 2018. But that's how it all started out. It was a journal dedicated to my nephew, and I just created it and morphed it into a book.
I want to read the last paragraph that's in here. It's being a cancer survivor is something that I'm proud of, but I do find myself still wondering why. Why did I live? Why did my grandfather or the people I met at Walter Reed live? I'm sure one day I'll have the answers to these questions, but for now, I do not. All I know is that I have a second chance at life, and I'll make the best of it. And my mother was right. Everything would be okay.
That's awesome.
She did. Damn. She would always tell me everything's going to be okay. It's all going to be all right. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. What does she mean it's going to be okay? I just, I couldn't see it, and while you're in the midst of everything,
yeah,
you can't see it. You don't know what's going to be happening. But if you have a good support system, I believe a good support system is so important. Yeah. I know for a fact if I didn't have my mom there, and it doesn't have to be your mom, it could be
sure,
an ally, it could be anybody, but you need somebody there who's going to be pouring into you, being your strength when you are depleted. Like you need somebody there. And she was that. And she was right. She would always remind me everything's going to be okay. She'd be like rubbing on my bald head and like, you know, just letting me know that everything's going to be fine. But I was jacked up, man. I was messed up. But her being there and, you know, just having her there, like she brought me back to life.
Wow.
She did. She really did.
Brandi, I appreciate you coming on the show, coming all this way in order to tell your story. Like we mentioned, it's a powerful story, and I think it's one in which people who have deployed should continue to, and I think you would agree, check themselves out, be very much aware of what's going on with their body, and you know, when a doctor says it's okay, you know, just you're fine or something of that nature, keep pushing. If you don't feel right, go with your gut feelings. There may not be something right there.
Right.
So it's an excellent message, and I hope people reach out to you and give you an opportunity to come and speak at other events and stuff like that.
I love it.
So again, I appreciate you really, you know, taking the time out to come on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was nice meeting all three of you gentlemen.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's
Likewise.
been great. Thank you.